What is up, Los Angeles football fans? Excited to be chatting with you today. We've got a great show. We're gonna do the first little bit live here. Just get this all pushed out to everyone. There we go. Yeah, third time's a charm, right? We'll get this right. So you'll get to see a little how we do the production here, how we do the recording. So I have two really good guests on that join me in a little bit. It won't be live, so you'll have to actually go to the podcast to listen to those. But I have Gilbert Manzano. He's a Chargers beat writer. We're going to break down the Chargers schedule. And then Cameron DeSilva, who's a Rams beat writer. We're going to break down the Rams schedule. So it's a full episode dedicated to the schedule. A little bit of USC news as well. A little bit of Bruins news. I know we haven't really talked much about them. This is the LA football podcast. We haven't talked a ton about the Bruins or Trojans. Just haven't been a lot to talk about. There's no spring game, no practices, so it's been mostly NFL for you. But we got a little bit of news. We'll get to some good news for the Trojans. Perhaps not the best news for the Bruins, but we'll talk about that briefly. And then I'll end the live broadcast and drop the link for the rest of the show, which was previously recorded this morning, that you can hopefully pick up and watch that. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get this off and rolling, shall we? Let me actually make sure we're recording here, which I have been for, looks like, quite some time. So we'll start that over. Live production, gotta love it, right? Got to love it. Okay, cool. All right, well, let's get this podcast off and rolling.
Believe in LA football podcast.
Touchdown Rams! Touchdown UCLA! Recovered by the Chargers. The Trojans back in front. Touchdown Wildcats!
With your host, Ryan Dyrud, on the Believe Podcast Network and LAFBnetwork.com. This is your destination for Los Angeles football.
What's up, Los Angeles football fans, and welcome to another edition of the Believe in LA Football Podcast here on the Believe Podcast Network. We are also on LAFBnetwork.com, your destination for Los Angeles football. If you're watching live right now on Twitter, Periscope, YouTube, or Facebook, thank you so much. Appreciate it. If you're not, find us on Twitter, LAFB Network, Instagram, LAFB Network, YouTube, LAFB Network, or Facebook, LA Football Network. Go ahead and find us there. You can find me personally at Ryan Dyrud, LAFB on Twitter, and or you can email me if you're not into the socials, podcast at LAFBnetwork.com. So hope everyone's having a tremendous Monday. It's a beautiful day here in Los Angeles. The schedules for the NFL released last week on Thursday. So we're going to get into that. I know it's a few days to digest, so I'm going to have two great guests on the show. Cameron DeSilva, managing editor for the Rams Wire, is going to jump on with me. We're going to go game by game of this Rams schedule, break it down, some surprises, how we think the season's going to go. And then Gilbert Manzano, Chargers beat writer for the OC Register, is going to join me to discuss the Chargers schedule. So get a little bit of both for you there. Excited about that. Had a few days to really kind of process how the schedule came out for both teams, and we can get into it and hopefully get your thoughts on it. Hit me up on Twitter, Ryan Dyrud LFB. Let me know what you think. If you're pumped by the schedule, if you're disappointed. I mean, we've known the opponents now for a while, but at least we can mark it on our calendars. And, at this point, I'm going to try to talk as positive as I can that we are going to have a season and that fans will be welcomed on those seasons. So I think we have to be thinking positively, even though we don't know what the world's going to look like, what we're going through right now. But got to think positively. So before we get into those really quickly, I do want to touch on some UCLA and USC news. I feel like it's been ages since we've talked about them. This is the Believe in LA Football podcast, not just the Rams and Chargers. But there really hasn't been a lot to talk about with UCLA and USC. But a little bit of news happening just in this past week. First of all, I should say happy belated Mother's Day to all those beautiful mothers out there. My wife, it was her first Mother's Day with our beautiful daughter, Mia Ray, so that was spent in the hospital with her, but it was great to see them interact and get some good pictures, and many, many more and my daughter is so blessed to have a mother like my wife. Big thanks to my mom and all the mothers out there. Truly, truly special. So I wanted to at least mention that. Here we are, day after Mother's Day, so happy Mother's Day to all the wonderful moms out there. I mean, you're the reason we're all here. Give birth to us. And then raise us and have to put up with our crap. So thank you for that. So, and I mentioned that because on Mother's Day is when a lot of this news kind of broke for USC and UCLA. So let's start, I guess we can call it the negative. We'll start with UCLA, we're talking a little bit about the 2021 recruiting class. 2020 recruiting is pretty much wrapped up. The season's a few months away if it does happen. And so we're looking now forward to how these next future classes look. And, it's a tough recruiting. You're doing it all virtual. You can't sit in people's living rooms. So some of that artistic and showmanship and maybe the prowess that some of these great recruiters have may be lost because they're not able to schmooze in living rooms to parents. It's all done virtually now. So the Bruins, as it sits, only have 2 commits for 2021. They have a 4-star linebacker a 3-star linebacker and a 3-star receiver. Both from California who have committed to UCLA. And the kind of bad news is one of their top recruits, Caden Salter, who's a dual threat quarterback, is a top 100 quarterback, decided to commit to Tennessee over UCLA. So kind of missed out on that opportunity. There are some other dual threat quarterbacks that they will pursue. Miller Moss, Shadir Sanders, if I'm saying that right, they're 4-star targets at quarterback that Chip Kelly and this UCLA coaching staff will attempt to go after and missing on Salter. So, happy for the kid if he wants to stay or go to Tennessee, but bit of a miss for UCLA. But, got a year to gain traction. I thought this year's recruiting class, Chip did really well. I'm excited to see how this team does in 2020, kind of headlined by Parker McGuire, the quarterback, the pro-style big quarterback, and Damian Sellers, the linebacker, both 4 stars. So I think those are kind of the high points of this class, and then we'll see if they can improve on 2021, who, as I mentioned right now, has 2 guys committed, so they'll need to build on that. So that's kind of the little bit of news for UCLA there. I wanted to at least mention them. And then we get to USC, who has had some down recruiting classes as of late. Obviously, the huge storyline was this 2020 recruiting class, one of the worst in memory for the Trojans. Well, that can't be said for the 2021 recruiting class. So I don't know if it's the continuity that Clay Helton is returning, that Mike Bone, athletic director, has put in a ton of confidence in Clay Helton as the coach of the future, if it's the retainment of Grant Harrell, if it's the new D coordinator and Todd Orlando, maybe a combination of all of it. But this 2021 class, so far, they're commits. They're not, they're hard commits, but they're not officially signed on. That's what you have to remember. They can shift. Hopefully they don't. But, looking very, very strong so far. 11 hard commits already. Ranked 5th nationally and 1st in the Pac-12. I mean, that's great. A lot of 4 stars on this list so far of commits. Done a really good job. Headlined by Jake Garcia, quarterback out of La Habra. So able to take someone who's homegrown and keep him here in SoCal. But the big news yesterday, Julian Simon, big 4-star recruit out of Tacoma, Washington, listed as an athlete. Played both sides. Played offense, where he recorded, 83 receptions, 1,000 yards, 12 touchdowns, had 7 rushing touchdowns. But also where he'll most likely play with USC is on defense. Can play safety, corner, linebacker. Just a really, really, really talented young kid who I think Trojan fans should be very excited about him coming to Los Angeles and playing for the Trojans. Next, after this season, I believe only a safety is going to be lost due to being a senior, and there's other guys that can commit to the NFL if they decide so. But obviously loaded at receiver. So you would think that Simon will play on the defensive side of the ball, but a really good get for this really growing, tremendous class for Clay Helton. Like I said, 5th ranked nationally right now, 1st in the Pac-12. So a lot of positives for the future of USA. I know a lot of fans are still bummed that Clay Helton's the guy. I know there's not a ton of excitement going into this year, but I think the future is bright. They'll build on last year's. I know they had a tough bowl loss to Iowa, but build on that, win a bowl game this year, and then hopefully in the following year, we can be in that national contention, that national title talk. I think they'll get there. They're building something building something. I know that USC doesn't want to be building something. You should be competitive for national titles every single season. But with the way things have gone, with the change in leadership at the athletic department, now let's keep the continuity and let's build towards the future, set the foundation, get the building blocks. And they seem to be doing that this year. And then 2021 is where they're ramping things up. And hopefully we'll see from them beyond the old USC where every single year they're a top 25, preferably top 10 team. So I think they'll get there. And a lot of that is continuity. So we'll see how that goes. So good news there with a good hard commit, another one for the USC Trojans. But all that being said, now it's time to get into some schedule talk. Before I do need to mention my friends at BetOnline. Today's episode of Believe in LA Football is brought to you by betonline.ag. I know it's a weird time, no sports on, but there is plenty to bet on, including their online casino with poker and blackjack. You also have esports, you have American Idol, Big Brother, the elections. The elections are coming up. You can bet on them. They have a $750,000 poker series, plenty of other stuff to check out. Make sure to go to betonline.ag. You're going to use my promo code MYPOD100. That's MYPOD100. And you're going to get a welcome bonus. So make sure to go to betonline.ag, your online wagering experts. All right, with that being said, thank you so much for listening to the LA Football Podcast. As always, as mentioned, I'm your host, Ryan Dyrud. Let's get into these interviews with Cameron DeSilva of the Rams Wire and with Gilbert Manzano of the OC Register. All right, so for those listening live now, I'm finishing up the show. I'll be posting it in right below this, wherever you are watching, so you can get those interviews. Hopefully you'll check them out. Some good stuff, some fun schedule talk, and we just really get into all the games, break it down. Not a lot going. It seems like since this whole pandemic started, we've at least had something to look forward to, as strange as it is, at least concerning the NFL. The pandemic started, but you still have the draft coming up, whether it was going to be live or virtual. Obviously, it ended up being virtual, but there's still tons of draft content to consume. They were still 100% going to air the drafts. We had that to look forward to. Even before that, you had the free agency frenzy. So there was a lot of stuff involving that, players switching teams. And then after that, you had this kind of schedule release to look forward to. For Rams and Chargers fans, you had the uniform, the logo releases. Rams are still holding out on to the uniform release, but it should be coming. But now, there's really not. Schedules are released. Now it's just kind of a waiting game. Teams are doing their virtual mini camps, virtual rookie camps. So we kind of just now have to, I don't want to regurgitate things, but there's, ways that we can consume sports before the hopeful start of the NFL season. So that's my job to do on this podcast, on the LA Football Podcast, and I hope you continue to tune in and listen. I certainly do appreciate all of you for listening. So make sure to check out the rest of the show, which I'll be posting here just shortly. Thank you so much. Wherever you're listening, hit me up. If you want to subscribe to one of the channels, we're on every podcast platform, Apple Podcast, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google, all of them. So hit that subscribe button. That way you're notified every Monday and Thursday when we do submit. So thank you so much. Please stay safe, stay healthy, and let's continue to keep the conversation over, talk about Los Angeles football, and check out the rest of the show below. Thank you all so much.